Hi, today I want to share a couple of tips relative to the college application process that I hope will help keep students on track. And if you're a parent who's helping them manage this process, these are good things for you to know. If you've been listening in on any of my conversations prior to this, you may have heard me say, maybe multiple times, that this process is not one size fits all or cookie cutter, meaning obviously the students are different and are different individually, but what colleges ask for and require of an applicant also can vary greatly from school to school. So, one of the things that's most important right from the very start is to help students understand what is going to be required by each university that they're applying to. These things can range from supplemental essay questions that they have to respond to. It could mean that some schools require them to submit test scores or not. And where do those test scores have to come from to be considered official? Some colleges will ask a student to upload a copy of their own transcript, and that actually is a way of having the file completed. Some schools employ a self-reported academic report, getting those acronyms a little off, I feel like, but it is an extra step that some colleges require whereby a student has to literally manually input everything from their transcript from the past 3 years up through junior year, and then including senior year courses that are in progress. So it is very important, again, that students figure out some method by which they can pull everything together and truly understand what each college is asking for in order to have a completed application. And completed application is something that I also really want to touch on here. A completed application doesn't just mean you've hit submit and off the application goes out from either the Common App or if a student is applying directly on a college's website. That is one part of that process, the application itself. That has to get there, obviously, and that contains a lot of useful information that the college needs to make a decision about the student. But then, in most cases, not all, an official transcript is required. That means the transcript has to be sent directly from the student's high school in order for it to be considered official. Again, there are exceptions to this rule. That's where having a copy of your transcript to upload, if a student is asked to do that, could be helpful. But most of the time, the official transcript has to be sent. What is going on with test scores? In some cases, colleges will allow students to self-report their test scores, and they have the means to do that either in the Common App or perhaps on the school's own application that they're using. So the student simply enters the information that they have about their current testing, and that is enough for the college to make a decision about them. Other colleges, however, are going to ask that the test scores be sent directly from the testing company. So ACT or SAT. SAT is the College Board. So understanding that, because if those don't arrive the way they are requested, especially if I'm talking about official test score reports, then the application isn't complete without those. What about letters of recommendation? Have students made sure that they know that those are in progress? They've asked well ahead of time at school, and do they know how many are required of the schools that they are applying to? Again, everything varies from place to place, and if parts of the application are missing, a college cannot make a final decision. So the other thing that happens after applications have been submitted that is really important is that students are often, most of the time, issued something called a portal. They are given some kind of information to establish their own login so that they can actually see the progress of their materials being received by and recorded by the university. So that is really important. Our students do not like to check email, but this is going to be the primary way that a college reaches out to them to A, help them establish the portal initially, and then B, following up with them if there are actually materials that haven't been received. So not only can the student check themselves, if something isn't there, oftentimes the college is going to send them an email and say, hey, we've received your application, but we don't have a transcript on file. We need you to help us take care of that. So that may mean that the student then has to reach back out to their high school and make sure that that transcript was requested properly and then that it was in fact sent for them in terms of doing all of that. So, big picture, there's a lot of minutia here. And depending on your child's exact list of colleges, there could be a variety of steps and details that need to be attended to make sure that the application is complete. My real point in all of this is about timing. Students are natural procrastinators in a lot of cases, and this is not a good time to do that. And our goal when we work with students is generally to have them apply 2 weeks ahead of the college's posted deadline, because that allows time for all the other materials to arrive to have a completed file. Now, not all colleges require that a file is actually complete on the date of the application deadline, but here's a little secret. Some of them do. So if the deadline is October 15th and a college requires all materials to have a completed application done on that day, a student cannot submit their test scores that day. They cannot request their transcript be sent that day. They need a longer window of time to be sure that that file is completed. So again, it is a investigative process when our kids have to figure out what all the nuances are about their specific applications. But the best advice I have is to simply encourage them to plan ahead and consider 2 weeks ahead of a school's actual deadline, their deadline by which everything should be completed and be on its way to the college to be received. So again, it's not that colleges are trying to make this harder than it needs to be. It is just that there are lots of different ways that the information gets to them for them to be able to make these decisions. So they all employ their own variety of rules and regulations. And because it is just a lot to keep up with, planning ahead really is the biggest key in this process, and checking those portals, making sure students are staying on top of that. Here's a fun fact: colleges know if you are opening emails and if you are reading them and if you are logging into your portal. So their assumption is, if I've told you that we need this information either via email that I can see you've opened and read, or B, that I can tell you've logged into your portal and you know that your transcript hasn't arrived, or you know that your test scores aren't here. My assumption at some point is just going to be you've decided not to complete your application and we're moving on, and you are no longer under consideration for our school. But typically that is not the case. Oftentimes it is just students need to stay on top of this and do the follow-up steps that will make sure this process ends well for them in terms of having these completed applications so the colleges can make their decisions. I know it's a lot. There's a lot of ins and outs and nuances, as I always say, about how colleges handle everything in this process. As you know, we are here to help. My team and I can help students get organized and walk them through all of the details that every different college is going to require of them, or teach them how to learn those details themselves. So reach out if we can be of assistance to you and your family.